Welcome back, everyone, to the Real Talk Podcast, episode 20. We are finally somewhat back on schedule. We haven't had a new episode in a little bit, but we are glad to be back. We have a lot to discuss. In the 2 weeks, I believe, we were gone, a lot of trailers have come out, and that's actually going to be the entire focus of today's show. We are only going to be talking new trailers that have come out. We have 8 to talk about, including one that's only a bit of a 30-second TV spot, but nonetheless, we have a lot new footage to discuss, a lot to be excited about, a lot to, argue about with one specific trailer. But without further ado, joining me on today's podcast, as always, is Mike Gillis. Mike, what's going on?
What's up, guys? Back from a little hiatus, yeah. I've been a little under the weather lately for the last couple of weeks, but I'm back, and I'm ready to talk movies.
Yeah, we tried to get one out last week, but it was just timing wasn't working, and Mike, you were sick, Thursday?
I was sick, for the whole week, but I still went to school, because, you got to, and it was kind of sucky, but whatever, we're back.
So, yeah, it sometimes just schedules have been kind of mixed up, and I know we just said back towards the tail end of January that, we're back on schedule, everything's going smooth. Hopefully we can stick to it. We might try to start recording possibly Tuesday nights is what I want to look at eventually, so that way we can
maybe some advanced recordings as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that way we can just have it ready to be posted Wednesday at midnight, rather than wait till Thursday nighttime essentially to post it. But nonetheless, we're still excited to talk movies. And with that being said, we can start out with some weekend box office. All right, so running through the top 5 from the weekend of February 9th. Coming in at number 1 is the newly released and conclusion to the critically acclaimed trilogy, 50 Shades Freed, which made $38.5 million. Coming in at number 2 is Peter Rabbit in its opening weekend, making $25 million. Coming in at number 3, also in its opening weekend, is The 15/17 to Paris, making $12.5 million. Coming in at number 4 is Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, staying strong with another $10 million, only dropping 8.3%. And rounding out the top 5 is The Greatest Showman, making $6.4 million, dropping 16.3%. Mike, just looking at the top 5, what stands out to you?
Well, I hope you're being sarcastic when you were talking about the 50 Shades.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's just Valentine's Day kind of, just fodder, really. They're cheap to make. Everyone goes sees them because they're perfect for Valentine's Day. But I'm happy to see them gone. I think the whole fad is long overdue. These books came out years ago now.
Yeah.
A while ago, so the whole fad's over. Peter Rabbit, I actually heard good things about.
Yeah, I did hear it was a good family movie to take the kids to.
Yeah, it's good. I heard there was that weird controversy with the what was it, the food allergy thing where they're making fun of a character had a food allergy and they made fun of him, so people tried to boycott the movie for being
allergy phobic or whatever.
Allergists. That's kind of dumb.
Just in reference to what you said about 50 Shades, while $38 million for most movies is a pretty good take-in. Just looking up the original 50 Shades of Grey, which came out, I believe, in 2015, that's opening weekend made $93 million. Yeah. So
the fad's definitely gone down.
It's clearly died down tremendously.
These movies aren't good. They've been critically, terrible.
Exactly. Never had any interest in seeing any of them, and, the good thing about this one is this means that it's over. As many people were celebrating, we finally don't have to see these movies anymore. They've been coming out almost one a year, it seems, but glad to finally see it end. Just looking at the top 5, besides the newly releases, Jumanji and The Greatest Showman seems...
we can talk about that,
it seems we talk about it every week because they continue to show, great distance in the weekend box office because both came out in December. We are now halfway through February, and they're still in the top 5. I remember when Greatest Showman came out, its opening weekend did not impress tremendously, but it has stayed consistent. Likely will drop out of the top 5 next week, as it's only beat out Maze Runner by about 200,000. But still, it's been a great run for The Greatest Showman, as well as Jumanji.
Didn't Maze Runner came out after it?
Yeah, Maze Runner came out end of January.
Yeah, so it's running. It's definitely, as you said multiple times, word of mouth got this movie to where it is right now.
Exactly. Same thing with Jumanji and The Greatest Showman are both fantastic examples of, the best advertising is really just word of mouth because while, yes, Instagram ads and TV spots and trailers, they're great for getting the movie out there. Where you're going to make your money in the long distance is through making a good movie and having people enjoy it. So good for Greatest Showman and Jumanji. I love seeing movies that don't have to rely on a marketing machine to make all their money rather than just it's a good movie, people recommend it to each other, and they continue to make money as a result.
Yeah. But like the 15-17 to Paris also not good, I've heard.
Yeah.
The whole gimmick was like they're the real guys, but no offense to these real, they're heroes for sure.
Absolutely.
Like, they're not actors.
Yeah.
And if you want to tell the story correctly, you need actors. For example, Stronger with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes.
They did not use the real guy. They used Jake Gyllenhaal, and that's why that movie got very good reviews.
Of course.
I think they should have done something like that for this movie. But also having Clint Eastwood directing, he's a very lenient director.
Yeah.
There was no action with him. He's like, okay, do what you want. So
I feel
like that's why
he's not as strong as he once was, and a lot of people are asking for his retirement, not because he's a bad director, but because he seems to be out of touch. And while this movie, kind of relied on the Clint Eastwood name being attached as well as the gimmick of it's the real life heroes, and like you said, no disrespect to the real life heroes because they risk their lives and they should be commended for it, but when you're trying to make a good movie, movies rely on dramatics and heightening the tension, and if that cannot be executed perfectly, you lose a lot of the audience. And I was listening to one review on it, and they were saying how it became almost like laughable at times, and that's where problems arise, because there's laughably bad in movies like The Room and like where it's okay because it's not a serious movie. This is supposed to be a real life, serious terror attack on a train, and if the acting is laughably bad, that's when problems arise.
It's kind of disrespectful to the whole situation.
Exactly. So, not saying that I don't blame the heroes that had to play the roles.
It's tough.
Who wouldn't take the chance to be in a movie like this? But it's not their profession, and acting cannot be taught overnight. It's been seen with a lot of people. One that always comes to mind is Ronda Rousey, a UFC fighter, got into acting a little bit, but in all her movies, it seems she kind of stands out as not being a well-trained actress, and that's why a lot of people have this misjudgment that it can just be picked up overnight. You're only make-believing, but it really takes years of practice. And while I wouldn't say I like the idea of having the real-life heroes, but I welcome the difference of it.
I believe I can't think of what movie it was, but they had real life Marines play Marines. So they're not main characters; they're Marines. And who else could play a Marine better than a Marine? That makes sense.
Exactly.
But to have a main character, you need an actor to convey proper emotion. Just because it's hard for someone to just kind of recreate when an actor is trained professionally to do just that.
Exactly. If they were background players, I think it would make more sense. But the story is about them, and if you're going to do the story about them justice, it should be done with real life actors.
Yes. All right.
I
think that's good.
Yeah, we a little bit of a mini review of 15-17 to Paris, but yeah, I know. Nonetheless, making $12.5 million in its opening weekends. I don't expect it to stay in the top 5 next weekend. Might snag a 5 spot, but other than that, I don't expect it to make a ton of money. All right, so moving on to our main focus of today's episode, which is going to be all the trailers that have come out. Some of them Super Bowl spots, some of them just random trailers released during the weeks. And we will start, let's say, with the Avengers TV spot from the Super Bowl. It's the shortest one, and even though it's the shortest one, we probably have the most to talk about with, because a lot of little cool things in this TV spot. This was one of the ones during the Super Bowl where, I'm focused on the game. I don't really care about the commercials. But when this one came on, everything kind of stops and all eyes are focused on it. I really enjoyed two particular moments. One, obviously, Captain America getting his like Wakandan shield, or two of them, I think. They're like gauntlets that go on his arms, I guess. And then also Spider-Man when he's on the ring that's going around, and he takes off his mask, and you really get you get this idea that, like, you know, behind the mask is just a kid, and he's almost in far too deep. And also, interestingly, he was in the original suit, so he wasn't in the Iron Spider suit yet. So I don't know if that means that, you know, this is like one of those ones where it's like on his wrist and he just presses a button and it comes onto him or something, or I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it's interesting to see how that plays out.
I'd say my favorite part was actually when Tony has his bleeding
edge, yeah.
That's awesome. Like, the armor has changed so much from 2008 with that first Iron Man movie. Like, from him, like, it's just like it's him. The armor is him.
Exactly.
And it was a really cool shot as well.
Yeah, when he's walking through with his sunglasses on.
Yeah. We also saw Scarlet Witch doing something with Vision's Infinity Stone.
Yeah, people were saying whether it was still in his head or not. I think that remains to be seen, but yeah, definitely some sort of trickery going on there. If maybe she's going to insert a new one, or we'll see how that plays out. Any final thoughts on the Avengers Infinity War spot? Not too much footage in it, but
not too much, which
still gets me very excited.
We like to keep it secret until we see it.
Of course.
But it looks great from what we have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to our next trailer. Let's go with Skyscraper. Skyscraper, all its marketing started during the Super Bowl weekend, where this is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's new movie, not Rampage. We'll also touch on that one later.
How many movies is he in? Like, a million?
The Rock is his own genre at this point, with just he stars in a movie, and he's, like I've said many of times, him, Tom Cruise, and DiCaprio, I feel, are the only movie stars left where their name attached to a project sells it on its own. And this movie, I find it interesting. I don't know how I feel about the premise entirely, but I like that I believe it's an original story. I don't think it's adapted from anything.
Oh, I wouldn't think it's adapted. It looks kind of generic. In my opinion. Most as these disaster movies are.
Yeah, so going through just real quick what happens in the trailer, because it kind of gives the basic story outline. We have The Rock as, I think he was an ex-Marine, or he was in the Army, but he's
classic cliche too.
He's missing a leg, and there's this skyscraper, and and the way they said was it's a vertical city or whatever, and it's like, oh man, and you know, you see like the clouds and the grass inside the skyscraper, and so I guess I don't understand the physics of this.
There is no physics.
I don't understand.
It's a popcorn movie.
I don't understand the reason why you need to build a vertical city. But
I believe it takes place in China, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so too, because the company that built the skyscraper had a Chinese name to it, I believe.
Yes.
But something.
I'm looking at a little article here. It's talking about like how the building's called the Pearl, and it's like a big spiral.
Yeah, and so, so The Rock, something happens where he gets trapped and he's like separated from his family. I don't know. I thought when I first put this on the list of trailers we're going to talk about, I thought that I was excited to talk about it, but you know, just thinking about it more, it's a very generic premise, like you said, even though we haven't really seen this idea of like, I don't believe we've seen a skyscraper disaster movie, but
Die Hard.
Oh yeah, jeez, I don't know how I forgot about that. But just but Die Hard's not built or